I progressed from there and I became a special agent, Department of Defense, CID.
Okay. So the reason I play that clip is just because obviously a bit of background. He, like he said, he does his job. He was in the military. He's done police work. He's done, officer. Like he's done investigations. He's worked in criminal. He's worked in terrorism. Like, you know, it's quite some high-powered roles. Which involve, I guess, a particular set of skills, as Liam Nelson would say. And so therefore, I wanted to ask a question, and listen, not everyone has to answer it. But do we believe that maybe the military background could be playing also a role in the way that he's also going about this dating phase? Just because I've seen a past few seasons, we seem to be having somebody who is military based, and we may not always agree with the way they go about the way they see certain things. You know what I mean? So I'm just wondering if anyone wanted to share a viewpoint on that, because I think it's quite important that he mentioned that resume, and I think it might give us a little bit more insight to understand where he's coming from. You know what I mean? Anybody feels free, you can open your mic, and I'll see you and get you talking. Go for it, Jay.
I'll say, being that I have some family in the military and different branches, I won't say it's just the military itself, because I have different personalities within my family. They're not all rigid as he is. But when he started to list everything else he has done on his resume, I think a combination of all that, his personality per se with the military, led him to those other jobs that made it more of this personality going forth, especially when it got to the interrogation part. There's a certain demeanor with people that do interrogation that is very stern, is very straightforward, is very strict, and it asks a lot of questions, that because that's their job. They're not into divulging information to you, they're into extracting information. So I think with the fact of his particular
Wait, Jay, wait. That was a point right there. They're into what? Extracting it. Just need to touch on that point again. Yeah, that was a point. That was a point. I didn't deep it.
Yeah, that's what caught my attention earlier when he said the interrogation, is because his job is to extract the information. So with that, he's going to ask all the questions and give you very little of himself. And that's what we've kind of been seeing. And it would take somebody that he feels that he trusts enough to do that. So that's why I think Sue-Ann gets a bit of that. Plus, when I combine that with Sue-Ann's job, attorney, and this, I kind of get why he opens up to her a little bit more easier than everybody else. But then that's also why I said that's why we have Jeffrey on the other side saying that she feels he's controlling this and that, because a lot of people, unfortunately, when you're in the military, you get that stigma of being controlling, authoritarian, a dictatorial. You always need to have this form of headship going on. And I do get it. It's based off of how they're trained, their structure, but that's not always the case. As we see with Tyrone doesn't seem like he comes off like that. Tyrone's a little bit more lighter when his energy and whatnot. I do know that's a part of it, because that's just what they're trained to be: organized, detailed, and things. But unfortunately, some people hear that and automatically is, oh, I know who you are. You're in the military. Oh, I know how you're going to be. And unfortunately for him, his demeanor combined with that makes it a negative thing off top. So like I said, it's going to take somebody that is just patient enough to really just get to know him for who he is, to say, okay, I see what type of man you are. Yes or no, I can deal with you and let's move forward, or not. But he really needs somebody that just needs to, who is in it for the real reasons, as far as I actually want to get to know you past what you have done in your past.
That breakdown was cold. Go for it, go for it. Bree, go for it. I keep reading your whole name, B.
Yeah, Jay is so spot on. Only because I have experience with this. I dated somebody in the military, and like what Jay was saying about like being regimented, like that is so Blake. And the person that I was dating was like that, and they tend to have kind of like trust issues when they first meet you. At first, like you really have to break in. It was almost like I was dating, what is that, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, whatever that thing is. it's like kind of like that. But I do think part of it may, because he has like a certain personality, and then on top of that, the military experience, it can be kind of like a turn off to some people. But I mean, I think he has, of course, he has a good heart deep down inside. I just do think it takes a special like person to really get through his layers. Because you don't know what they've seen. You know, the things I've talked about with the person I was dating at the time, they've seen a lot. And it's hard for them, they compartmentalize things. And when it comes to relationships, they don't really know how to turn that off. They're always looking out if there's danger around. So I kind of like, now seeing his background, I kind of like get it because I kind of experienced that with someone. But I totally agree what Jay was saying in regards to Blake. And you shouldn't just turn somebody off because like you have a preconception about what somebody has been through, like in the military. So I totally agree with that.
Thank you for that kind of experience as well. It's good. I think we get to know a bit more into the ideas of people's thoughts. Okay, JR, Sean, do you want to contribute as well? Or
I was gonna say, like, yeah, so I definitely agree that there may be some traits that he's learned, things that he's picked up whilst being in the military and all the other security protection type roles that he's done, because that's a symptom, unfortunately, of going into that line of work. Like they drill it into you to be on time, you know, around munitions, missions, getting debriefed on certain things, seeing casualties of war or casualties and limbs and all types of things that we probably would never even imagine. They've probably seen some crazy stuff and had to do some crazy stuff in that line of work. But like I said, I think the problem is when they reintegrate into society after they finish their service, that I don't know whether there's enough aftercare to gradually bring them in, or whether they're just discharged and just said, yeah, okay, go and find a job now and go and live a life, right? So we've had previous seasons where there have been people that have served in the military and they've admitted to having PTSD, and that's often worked to their detriment. I'm not saying Blake has it, but from what I see, he may have an off effect where it's like he does try to extract information without giving too much of himself. But I think that could also work well with Sue-Ann because she does the same thing as an attorney. Her job is to extract information too. And the way she handles Jeffrey when they get into confrontation, she kind of uses her skills as she talked about as well. Like being an attorney, she often has to speak to people who don't want to share information or are hostile or combative with what they're trying to say or do. So that may be something that they share in terms of having to ask questions but not give too much of themselves. And so far, it seems to be gelling. But yeah, like I think the military thing is a hard thing to quantify, because unless someone goes for analysis or psychoevaluation or anything like that, you never really know how affected they are. And if they're just told to go back out into society, then that's where the problem is, because they're going to encounter the Sue-Anns and the Blakes and the Jeffreys and all the other people out there, and they have to be able to you know, be able to communicate and have relationships. But if they haven't had any post army therapy or some type of integration to get rid of whatever they went through, if there were horror stories, or even just the strict discipline aspect, because when they come back into the real world, they can't be polishing shoes and peeling potatoes or whatever it is they're doing in the service like that. You have to have some sense of normality again. So yeah, I don't know anyone personally in the military, but I just assume it's going to be a hard job.
Sean?
I would say that Jay summed it up very well. I'm very familiar with his current job, which is corporate security, because in banking, Often I work directly with those folks when there's people that have to be interviewed when it comes to internal fraud. And it's this very similar characteristics that she spoke about is, you have to be able to question folks. Usually the people that do the job have a background in law enforcement of some kind. So makes sense that he does as well. And because the personality is very much somebody who is very good at getting information. Sometimes you got to bend the truth to get the truth, and, they know how to be manipulative too. So to get what they want. And then I think the other thing that I think might add to it too is that sometimes what can happen is because you do that for your day-to-day life, you might not even be intentionally trying to, I would say you might not be intentionally trying to mislead somebody, but because you do it so well and it's so innate that some of those skill sets can just come out naturally. Just like, people that are attorneys, they will, bend and twist arguments, when it's convenient, like someone who is on the ski slopes as we
Don't even try it, Sean. I'm not about to have you try it. I know she's in the chat as well. Don't you start. Don't you start.
Yes, I just talked to Seaway earlier. I can.
Okay, don't you try it. All right.
I'm gonna get her. She might just be up here later.
I'm gonna put a collage of all the clips that you put together and show you how you contradict yourself on the regular.
Good luck, and you can have a blast.
It ain't gonna be good luck.
Yeah,
it's
good
easy.
luck. Good luck. But nevertheless, I digress because I'm a calmer Sean. And, folks, depending on their careers and what they've spent their lives doing, those parts of their lives can come into reality and, make it convenient for them to be misleading.
Yeah, I think you made a good point there, Sean. And Jay kind of touched on it as well in terms of the manipulation aspect. I think he has manipulative tendencies before the job. The job allows his manipulation to be used in a good manner. And I think interpersonally, he suffers because the manipulative tendencies are there before the job. The job just gives him that regency to do something in a safe, quote unquote, righteous manner. I think there were some characteristics of his personality, as you guys were saying as well, that that bleed into what we're seeing right now. Even today, Cynthia at the end, even today, Cynthia kind of was talking about, how he needed to be, watch how he used his words. He was overly direct, so more than likely he's using commanding language, directive language, which is making it seem like he's being overly assertive and overstepping the bounds when it comes to interactions with people, which can be a problem. So I think, you saw how Blake kind of responded to Cynthia. At first, he didn't really like it, but then by the end, he sorry about that. Yeah, my thing went off there for a sec. I think because she used obviously she was very direct as well at the end, right? She said, "No, you need to go and get your power, boy." She said, "You need to be telling these women exactly what it is," and I think he understood that. So I personally do feel like he might be on the spectrum. Just gonna say it. I don't know, because just the way that he takes information and receives it, it is very. It's giving again, it's very much giving what I've seen with. I remember like Corey a few seasons ago. It's like we read a book and we interpret the book. Some people read the book and they literally do the literal part of the book. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, you're supposed to interpret the words that you have in a book. You know what I mean? Like, if you ever read The Game or The Player Guide or whatever, right? in the past. I mean, there was a book that came out about the game and how to talk to women. You're not supposed to do exactly what the book says. You're supposed to interpret what the book is saying and kind of go from there. But what happened, what I'm seeing with Blake is I feel like he's got that kind of energy where it has to be almost like it's direct. You know, you just literally interpret things literal, which is probably why he responded to Cynthia's words quite easily, because it was very direct, straight to the point. This is what it is. There's no askew or going around it. But definitely, I do think he has some manipulative tendencies. I definitely feel like when it comes to relationships, I think he doesn't. He flouts the rules. That's what I want to say. He flouts the rules, and I don't know if every single time that he does it, he knows exactly what he's doing. And this is not me trying to give him a pass, by the way. We're just trying to understand where he's coming from, because usually people who are just directly manipulative, we're going to call them out. But he looks like he's on the spectrum, the way he's responding to certain things. That's, again, he may not be, and we're just speculating, and he may be far from it, but it does look a little bit like that. So yeah, it's quite interesting to kind of see in that respect. Yeah, anybody else on the thoughts on that before we pass it over? Yeah. No.
I don't know about the spectrum, but hey, maybe you're seeing something I don't.
Oh, that's fair.
I was gonna say, like, so Cynthia, when she sat down with him, she said he needs to no, she said when it came to the allegations that Jeffrey made, it seemed like the cat got his tongue, and he could have said something about that situation and nipped it in the bud. But then she said the way you speak to people is too abrasive and too rough. So I think he pick and chooses his moments. And at the moment, the only person that's giving him off energy is Jeffrey. And he keeps referencing the fact that he doesn't want to give energy to someone as negative as her, because it's going to engage in combat back and forth. And he's probably going to lose and look bad, because that's just how it will go, right? So I think, I'm not sure about the spectrum part, but I definitely think he's kind of conflict avoidant. Like, I'm not sure if he's trying to save face because of his profession that he has to go back to. I'm not sure if it's anything to do with the military training and being coached on how to approach certain situations when someone's trying to create drama for you. But yeah, I when I heard the feedback that Cynthia gave him, it was like, okay, so you want him to say more, but then you want him to watch how he says it. So I was kind of confused by that. I get her point, but yeah, like I can see why he was kind of like, yeah, like it was good and it was bad. At least she delivered it in a way which wasn't combative and attacking him. It was more like, here's some words of advice, here's some tips, this is some feedback from what the lady said. Now you can adapt. Because every week, I think this is the first time in history we've had one guy at the bottom every single episode. So I'm not sure why he's still there, other than his connection with Sue-Ann. Because the other guys, like Demario, for example, man, he hasn't been in the bottom at all. So I'm not sure what happened there.
Cool. Sophie G, welcome to the conversation. We're talking obviously about Blake and Sue-Ann. Just want to get your thoughts.
Yeah. So hello, everyone. I think Blake definitely doesn't know how to turn off his position, right? When he described that he was in corporate security, he was a special agent. I think I heard him say that. He dealt with terrorism, military. So a lot of his, I think his work personality mixes in with his personal relationships. There are people that can't turn it off. There are teachers that date and they start talking to the people that they date like they were their students. And it's hard to shut it off sometimes if you've been in it for so long. I'm glad he was able to open up and actually explain to us a little bit more about himself. I I understand him a little bit, but there might also be some issues of him dealing with his emotions. It's easy to hide behind a position. It's easy to hide, behind your job. You can, bury yourself in your job and not really deal with the person that you are. I think he has some trauma. This is my prediction. He might have some emotional trauma. It could be from childhood that I don't think he's dealt with. And because his reactions are extreme, and it always feels like something's going to boil over. So I think I read some comments that said like he looks like he has those eyes where he can pop off at any minute, and that really is a reflection of undealt emotional trauma, undealt emotional, or never really had a chance to express something in his past. Yes, military people definitely get a bad rap when it comes to this. And him and Sue Ann, I don't think is genuine. I think he is using her as a lifeguard, possibly. She almost feels like she almost knows that and is still going for it. Maybe it's just, let's just stay on the show to be on the show. So far that's what I get from Blake, is that he doesn't know how to shut off his work person, and we're not really getting the real Blake.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Sovaji. Appreciate it. All right, let's move it on then to the next situation. Let me go to my even notes. Who was next on our list? Okay, we're going